social media, she now works as a consultant to help small, medium, and large businesses grow and make sense of the social media world. She has a strong base in the Middle East to Europe and other corners of the world. Alex is one of the most passionate hybrid social minds of her generation. Her client lists include NASDAK, UPS, OSN, MaxFactor, and some governmental clients like KHDA and the Dubai Police Authority. On October 2020, Alex relaunched her online academy with a free lifetime membership. So far, 1,700 plus students have enrolled from all over the world. Over 2,500 plus people have attended her sellout bootcamps, masterclasses, and short courses. She is the host of live mini class with Alex twice a week live show on Instagram. Also a podcast, You Got This, Alex. She has been featured on Forbes Middle East, Gulf Business Magazine, NBC News, a frequent guest on Dubai Eye radio station, and on Thrive Global Magazine and Mashable. So over to you, Alex. Ready to be entertained?
So I'm from my understanding, what I am going to be talking to everybody here today, hopefully to bring as much value as possible. I believe it is about my journey, right? You want to understand, how did I go from having my own business now and my journey that has led me here today. Am I right?
Yes, of course.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And who is in the audience with us? I'm assuming we've got students.
Yes, we've got students and we've got some of our curtain staff as well.
Awesome. So, and what's the age approximately of the students that are tuning in with us today?
So they're from high school students all the way up to, well, professionals, adults.
Awesome. Okay, so, and how long do I have?
You have up to 6 p.m.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to talk to students, to younger people, and I want this to be also a conversation. So it's not just me talking. So I would love for you to don't be shy and ask me any questions about my journey or any of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. I will welcome you to just ask me questions. So type it either on the Zoom chat, or if you're on YouTube, you could type in the questions there. For me, it's really important that this does become a two-way thing and that I can hang out with you and talk to you. So this doesn't just become me here talking. I think one of my favorite things when I'm talking to students is that, first of all, I was a really bad student. I was not, when I look back at let me just close this window here because I'm seeing myself twice. My school time was not the best time. I moved to the UK when I was 10 from Portugal. And so that was really a disruptive sort of time for me at school. I didn't really have the stable growing up in the same school, same friends situation. At 10, we left Portugal and we moved to the UK. So completely different language. I didn't really even speak English at 10 years old. From England to Portugal, it's extreme difference. And so my school time was hard in that age. I didn't have any friends. Kids were super mean because I was the international girl. I was called pork and cheese. So there was a lot of 2 years where I didn't have friends. I didn't really have my groupies. Lunchtime, I didn't have friends to hang out and sit with. And so that was like my early years in school. And when I look back now, what that did was it just allowed me to, there's a lot of talk around self-awareness, and people need to have self-awareness. And I think self-awareness is something that if you start working on since you are young, you're going to get so ahead. And because I ended up spending a lot of time on my own because I didn't have friends, I was spending time with myself. So that led me to understand how to listen to my own thoughts, how to tune in into my own emotions, and have that sort of like quiet mental time where you know, I would check in, how am I feeling? What do I want? And I think that gave me a fast track into developing my own sense of self-awareness, of learning about me and what I want and what I feel and what are my needs. Now, I was really fortunate that my mom and my grandma raised me to always they always said to me, you have to do whatever makes you happy. But whatever it is that you do, it has got to make you happy. So thankfully, they've never put the pressure on, I had to be a doctor, I had to be a lawyer. It was always the premise was always around, never stop searching for what makes you happy, for what feeds your soul, you know, what gets you really excited, and not chasing the money or not chasing what's the right career or what's the trending career, but really what I wanted. And I was so fortunate that I had that, because I think sometimes when people ask me, how come you just did so many different things and you weren't afraid? I think it was because I had that since I was little, that voice, those voices that just always said, just never stop looking for what makes you happy. And my trajectory in school and my professional trajectory was so filled with so many off the beaten path experiences. My journey is not the standard where I finished I finished college and I went to uni. I never really went to uni actually. And then I graduated uni and I knew what I wanted to do. It was so basically, to give some fun context about my story, I always knew I wanted to be an actress. So my grandma was an opera singer. So arts was something that was very strong to me since I was little. So when I was in the UK, I did a lot of performing arts. I went to performing arts schools in London on the weekends. Anything that, you know, I took up drama. So that was like my thing. And since I was little, I don't know, but my earliest memory, I just knew I'm going to be an actress and I'm going to be acting and I'm going to be in New York. And even if I have to wait until I'm 90, this is what I'm going to fight for. And so when we moved back from London to Portugal, I went into acting school and I did 3 years of acting school in Portugal and then graduated acting school. And then I did some plays in the local theater. And then one day the director didn't want to cast me into what was going to be the next play. I was really angry because I was good and I was getting cast, and he just was like, no, because you need to leave. You need to leave Portugal. You don't belong here. I was so angry because I was like, I just got here 5 years ago from, you know, the hell that I went through in the UK, because the UK for me was not one of the best times in my life. And I was like, no, like I just got here. And he's like, no, like you don't belong here. You need to go out and just, you know. And I was like, but I can't, because my dream is New York and I can't go to New York. And at this time I was around 18. Okay. So I was 18 and my mom was still working in the UK and I was living with my grandma. And the thought of an 18 Portuguese-year-old girl going to New York, and I am 38 years old now, and this was when I was 18. So this was a bit of a while ago now, and the world was not what it is today. So we definitely didn't have social media. We didn't have half the stuff we have today. So I remember walking out of his office and being so angry because I was like, what's going on? Like, he didn't cast me. He told me that I need to go to New York. How can I go to New York? I don't have any money. But I've always been very stubborn. And I really urge everybody to just be stubborn, because being stubborn means that you're gonna persevere to fight for that thing you really want. So I've always been very headstrong with that. So I was like, okay. And he wrote on a little piece of paper the 3 names of the top schools in New York for acting. And he just wrote it on a little piece of paper. Now there already was internet back then. It's not that long ago. And I started searching and I started applying for the auditions. So what did I do? I recorded audition tapes, because back then there was these things called VHS tapes. I don't even know if anybody here remembers VHS tapes. But I sent my VHS tapes with my auditions to American Academy of Dramatic Arts because that was like one of the top ones, still is. And I'm like, I've got nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose. And my mom always taught me, you always have a no. A no, it's always guaranteed if you don't even try. So go and try, get that yes. And I will urge everybody, if you're listening to me and you are wanting to try something and go after something, like you already have. So go after it so you could at least try to get the yes, you know? So I was sent the VHS tapes, and guess what? It turns out that I get a letter in the mail, because that's how things were back then, and I get called to go for an interview. Now, this was insane, because never in a million years I would have thought I would get called for an interview, for an audition. And also, another practical issue, we really didn't have this type of money for me to be going to New York and audition. So the whole thing was just like, what? But I didn't think about those things because I just wanted to see if I would even get called, you know? Cut a long story short, a good friend of mine says to my mom, no, this is amazing, I'm taking her. So he gets my flight to New York, and he's the one who takes me to New York, and he's the one who takes me to my audition. And I am living my dream. You guys, I am just like, this is it. This is the dream. I am dying. This is amazing. I mean, New York, I was 18 at the time. It was just this like, that was the dream already. Like, I'm like, doesn't even matter if I get in, this is it. And then I go do the audition, come back. And 3 weeks later, around December, I get a package through the mail that, this is such a true story, guys. I remember my grandmother walking into my room with this package on the mail saying, oh, a lot of stuff came from the academy. And I remember putting it on the side of my bed because I just remember this like it was yesterday. I shrugged my shoulders and I said to her, oh, it's probably them just sending like the promotional stuff and just, you know, yeah. I didn't open for 3 days that package. 3 days later, I decided to open this package because I was feeling bummed, because I was feeling like, it's not going to happen. Like, hands down, it's not going to happen. When I open this envelope and I read the first line that says, we are delighted to tell you that you've been accepted in American Academy of Dramatic Arts, everything stopped for me. If you look up American Academy of Dramatic Arts, people like Danny DeVito, the girl that's in Sex and the City, Kim Cattrall, probably many of you don't know the next name I'm going to say, Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly acts from back in the 1950s. She even trained there. This is there's actually some more recent actors. The guy who did the piano, the one who has like a really bad kind of crooked nose, he's won an Oscar. He trained there. My whole world stopped. And I don't think I've ever had such a moment since then in my life. And I'm 38 now, and I was 18 at the time. And I have had many amazing moments. And that was a huge defining moment for me in my life because, you know, I just went for it with no expectations, but believing that I could just go for it. And that was one of the first lessons that I learned in life that I hope if you can get anything out of my 60 minutes with you is, if you have a dream and if you have a goal, never, ever, ever think that it can be unintangible. Your dreams are worthy of your courage, that you fight for them. Either you get them, either you touch it, or either you did everything that you could to try and get it. And that's the fight. And I think that's the process. And I think that's what you want to honor, you know? So then, cut a long story short, it was really dramatic because there was no money for me to go to New York. We didn't have this kind of money. You know, it was just so insane. How are we going to make this happen? And cut a long story short, we made it happen. And I arrived in New York by then it had been my birthday, and I think I landed in New York. I was 19 years old. And for about a year and a half, almost to 2, I really did live my dream. I was in New York. I was going to acting school and I was acting. And that was the most special moment of my whole life. And it taught me so much, you know. I was doing stuff that I never thought at 19 or 20 I would do in New York, like a little kid from Portugal. And that kind of was a huge lesson for me to see that you can achieve stuff. You just have to go for it fearlessly. You have to believe in yourself, and you cannot wait for other people to believe in you. I had a lot of people around me at the time that, this is crazy, why are you doing it, you're never going to get it, you don't even have the money. Never from my mom and grandma, but other people around me. And you have to be really careful as well with who you listen to, and make sure that you listen to your inner voice, and make sure that you find 1 to 2 people that are going to be your biggest supporters, and that's it. You know, don't pay too much attention to the outside noise, because that can actually hurt you a lot along the way. It can enable self-doubt. It may even become a crutch. Oh, if my best friend said I shouldn't do it, then, you know, be very, very careful with that. Really start learning to really trust your inner voice and your gut, and to really just follow when you wake up in the morning, that calling that is calling you for whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you want to be a vlogger, maybe you want to do skateboarding, maybe you want to be I don't know, a painter or an engineer. You know, follow that inner voice, because this is your story to write. It's not your parents, it's not your best friends, certainly not your school colleagues and peers or teachers, you know? And so that was like a great, amazing first lesson. And then another second lesson that life taught me along my journey was that after 1.5 years of living my dream, guess what? I got accepted to continue in New York and to continue studying there, even to be part of the theater. But guess what? I just didn't have any more money left. So I actually could not stay because of money. I could not renew my visa. There was no more money. So the dream ends. And life teaches you this lesson of, you got to the top of the mountain, and now guess what? I literally felt like somebody did this to me. They just flicked me off that mountain and went back to Portugal. And that started a period that, if anybody here is familiar with my content, or I talk about a lot, which started a period, and this was in my early 20s. And that's when you're supposed to have it figured out, what you're going to study, what are you going to do, what university, blah, blah, blah. I had no clue. I was lost. Well, first of all, I was heartbroken because I could not continue in New York. I had a bit of an identity crisis because I was in Lisbon and I didn't fit in with anything in Lisbon. My mom at the time then started working in Brazil. So I go and spend a year in Brazil. But bottom line was, I was so lost because I was not going to go back to acting unless it was in New York. Because maybe you're thinking, well, why didn't you continue acting maybe in London or maybe in Lisbon? No. For me, it was that or not that. That was it, you know. And so it began a period, which was my 3 to 4 year period of being lost. And I think society, I don't think I know, society has this thing of looking down on you if you're lost. Oh, you're lost? You don't know what you're doing. Oh, you're lost? No, you should know what you're doing. And you know what I tell everybody? At one point or more in your life, I truly, truly wish you feel lost. Because when you are lost, this is the biggest opportunity of your life to taste and experiment as much as possible. Like, this is the time where I literally did everything and anything that I thought would spark some sort of, you know, enthusiasm. My grandmother sat me down. I would be home sulking, and my grandmother sat me down, and she was like, she basically kicked my butt, and she said, listen, you have got to go get a job, go make new friends, do something, because you're just at home like feeling sorry for yourself. During these 3 years, I tried so many things that propelled me so much to where I am today. It's amazing. From I signed up to go work at Hard Rock Cafe. And with everything that I would do, I always had this premise, always, and this definitely came from my mom. I always said, I will be the best. I will either be the best or one of the best. And so when I signed up to go work at Hard Rock Cafe, I remember just saying to the manager, like, I want to be the best at bartending or hosting. And I remember him looking at me like, okay, Alex, but this is not going to be your career. He ended up becoming a huge mentor to me. So I did bartending at Hard Rock Cafe, then became a bar manager. I was a hostess at Hard Rock Cafe. I crossed the Sahara Desert for 3 months. And it was actually when I crossed the Sahara Desert that when I came back to Portugal, I said to my friends behind the bar, we had become really good friends, and I say, I think I know what I'm doing next, and I need to move back to London, and I got to study something, but I have no idea what I want to study, but that's what I'm going to do. So then I moved back to London, and then 2 of my best friends came with me. And when I was in London, that was really when I went deep into tasting a variety of skills and things. Now, the world was not what it was now. Today, we're living in the world where you wake up in the morning and with a mobile, you can launch a business, right? You can literally have a brand using social media. You want to have an app, you can build an app yourself, right? That was not really yet. And the world of social media and technology today, everybody here today, if you want a career in digital media, you can. About 20 years ago, that was not my reality. It was still very young. I was already in that world, but I had no awareness. I was subscribing to PC Guide magazine. I was learning how to build sites. I was learning Dreamweaver, but I didn't really have anybody to kind of nudge me and tell me that, hey, you seem to like this and there's career in this. So when I got to London, I was like, I should study. What am I going to study? And at this point, I think I'm like 24, 25. And I continue working at Hard Rock Cafe so I could pay for my stuff. You know, mom always taught me to be super, independent, look after my stuff and not depend on anybody. So the bartending work was great because it was paying for my bills. So I thought, you know what, I'll go to university and I'll study journalism. So journalism was one of my first ones, but I think there were some other ones back in Lisbon. And I dropped out 3 months. And this was a huge university course, University of Arts of London. And I'm like, oh, no way I can do journalism. Like, I hate writing. I'm terrible at spelling, like, I can't, I quit. And everybody, like all my friends, everybody was like, oh, you're crazy. You should have stuck it out. How many times have you heard this? You should have just stuck it out. And everybody said that to me. You're crazy. You should have just stuck it out. You've paid the fees. You've paid the money. Now you've lost the money. And now you've lost 1 year until you can enter university again. And I was just like, I don't understand this. I should have stuck it out. I don't like it. It sucks. Why am I going to waste time? So I always had this thing of like, I don't like it. I tried. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. And maybe it was my mom or my grandma, but I've always just had that, like, I'm not going to stick with something that I feel depressed and unhappy with, I'm seeing some questions, so I'm loving this. So, I'm going to cut a long story short. So then I continued bartending. And then on my next year, I did interior design because I thought, you know what? Interior design sounds about right. It's creative. It's, it's the environment. I've been in theater, and guess what? I totally sucked at it. I was so bad. But I was really good at 2 things, apparently. No, I was really good at the presentations, and I would swap with my friends. I would train them and coach them how they could present their stuff. And then in exchange, they were doing my CAD sketches. And all my projects were very branding. I made it all about creating a brand. I made it all about a concept. It had a lot of marketing tied into it. And this is when I'm so thankful to my teacher, my tutor, Valerie. And that's why I think coaches, mentors, teachers, if you find good ones, they can really sometimes just give you that nudge that you need. And when the ending, midway through the course, that's when she says, Alex, you are really bad at this. And I was like, okay, so what? And she's like, you know, you seem to be really good at this like online thing. I'm like, okay. And she's like, you're good at this online, you're good at tech, you're good at branding, you're good at marketing. That's what you got to do. And by the way, when I was doing these courses, they were like, this one was a 1-year diploma, because at this point I'm like, my mom is a self-made woman. So I grew up with a mom who is self-made. She doesn't have a degree. She, you know, achieved like managing director level, CEO levels in her companies that she's worked, literally starting from scratch. So I grew up with that example. So for me, I'm a hustler. I'm a street smart kid that I will read everything. I will hustle. I will read old books. You know, I will stay up late, because there's that chip in my shoulder as well, where I didn't go to university. I don't have the master's. So for me, I was like, I'll do a 1-year diploma and then I'll just get experience. So she says to me, Valerie, that's my teacher's name that I'll never forget. And she was the one who said, well, you know what? We don't have a branding course. We don't have a branding diploma, nothing yet with this online. Next year we will. And I remember looking at her like, oh, so what do I do? Like, what? And she's like, you know, like, why don't you go get experience? Go and do internships in these agencies. You know, at the time, media agencies were still, and they were not called media agencies, they were called advertising agencies. They then went through a big, you know, change. The whole industry evolved. And so I did finish my diploma interior design course. And fun fact, I created an Apple hotel in the shape of an Apple hotel. And guess what? I read on the news a couple of months ago that in Shanghai, Apple is actually opening an Apple store that's exactly on that shape. And I'm just thinking like the irony of it all. So my tutor, game changer for me. So if you have a tutor that you love, that you trust, or if you don't, find somebody that you think can be a really good soundboard, because they can sometimes really, really make an impact in your life. After that, I started interning in agencies in London to get as much real life experience as possible. And I was starting to understand that this social media digital marketing thing was a thing that I really kind of liked. And so fast forward that I had always become fascinated with the Middle East since I had traveled and crossed the Sahara Desert. I had a friend who was always traveling to Dubai. And when I would meet him, I would read his book, his guidebook about Dubai. And I started hustling on LinkedIn. So I think at this, so I'm 30, so I'm really bad with math. So if anybody wants to help me out. So I'm 38 now, and I came to the Middle East 12, 13 years ago. So this is how far back this is now. And after interning in these agencies, which were great, I wasn't getting paid nothing, by the way. I wasn't getting paid, but I was getting a lot of experience. I was like looking at these people that have marketing degrees, strategies degrees, you know, they have like all these big names. And I'll never forget being in these meetings with all these really important people doing these creative pitch presentations. And I'm just like, what is going on? I have no clue what's happening. I decided I want to apply to come and work for Dubai or Hong Kong. And I already was hustling on LinkedIn back then. Cut a long story short, I got a job offer. And at the time, my job offer was 2,500 dirhams. That's my first salary here in Dubai, 2,500 dirhams to be a digital manager for a quite well-known restaurant here in Dubai. And the deal was to be their digital manager and to handle all of their social media digital, and then to be a hostess on Fridays, on Thursdays and Fridays for their high-end events. So for 2,500 dirhams, which we know it's like nothing. And I said yes. And the years that came after that, so let's say from when I got here, the next 5 years, I became obsessed about learning everything that I could about the advertising and agency industry. In my industry, working in agencies is a big thing. You know, it's a big deal. People want to work in the big agencies like Leo Burnett's, TBWAs, BBDOs, DDBOs. There's all these names of these big agencies that go back to 1940, like, you know, TBWA 1945, one of the first agencies that opened in New York. So I just said to myself, I don't have a degree in marketing. I don't have a degree in strategy. How am I going to make this now my university? And what I did was I worked for 1 year in an agency. I left and I went to another one. Can you guys imagine how much judgment I got? Because, oh my God, that looks so bad on your CV, Alex. You just work one year in one agency and then you move. But remember what I talked to you guys about in the beginning, which was listen to yourself. Do what feels right for yourself. I never cared if people were telling me what I was doing was wrong. I believed so much in my path. And I'm like, this is how I'll get experience. So I worked in a local branding agency here, which was great. I had a lot of local clients. So I learned so much about the Emirati culture. I worked with the Dubai Government Culture and Arts, Sika Art Fair, Al-Bastakia. It was amazing. I learned everything I needed to learn about branding and the local market. After that, I actually went to client side and I worked for a photography studio who had no clue. And in all of these places I was going, these first places, none of them had social media. None of them had much of an online presence. So I then became the girl that would like set it all up. After 2 to 3 years of this, I became really bored because I was like, well, I'm not learning from anybody. And what I really wanted was to learn from people. So that's when I start wanting to get work in those big agencies, you know. So then I actually applied to work in Singapore because I had always wanted to go to Asia. So I got a job in Future Brand in Singapore. And I would say that it was from Singapore onwards that I started to get into the bigger agencies. And I worked my way. Every time I would change agency, my salary would get a little higher, my position would get a little higher, and I would start to learn so much more. The last 2 agencies or 3 agencies that I worked before I quit to do my own business, that was really what cemented a lot of my learnings, because I went to work for LBI Digitus, which is a big agency, and I learned so much with a strategist that was working there. Then I went to TBWA, and at TBWA I was head of social media. At LBI, I was head of social media department. So over the course of like 10, 11 years, I was just a sponge. I was not building my brand. I had no content. I had no personal branding. I was a practitioner of social media. And I always felt insecure because I was always around people that had degrees. Marketing degree, strategy degree, especially in my last agency, TBWA, where there were these like head of strategy and, you know, do strategy decks and stuff like that. And I would just be like, oh man, like I didn't study this. But I would go to Kunukonia in Dubai Mall and I would sit and I would read all the strategy books. I would take screenshots. I would like hustle as much as I could to learn fast track. And during all this time, I was handling social media accounts, you know, big clients, small clients, and I was doing everything from content creation to, you know, then I tried everything. So the bottom line here is I tasted so much. In 11 years, I tasted content creation, analytics, client servicing, listening insights, all the things that you can go in the world of social media. I was there. Name it, I did it. And I started understanding what was it that I was really loving. And that was creativity and strategy and combining those two. The more I was putting myself out there, the more I was learning about me and my strengths and my skills. And that has always allowed me to really tune in into that self-awareness that I was talking to you guys about. To cut to a long story short, to where I am today, My last agency that I worked at, I had a big salary. I had a big name in the industry, in the agency. I had a big team. I had teams in Egypt, teams in Lebanon, teams here in Dubai, teams in Saudi. I had huge accounts, and it was amazing. The last year was a nightmare, you know? It was so much politics, so much toxic environment, very male dominant environment. I've always been very rebellious, you know, but I had a lot of leverage because I had built a whole department. So it started becoming bad, a lot of fighting, a lot of, I was working more on trying to survive the politics than actually doing my work. But I'm stubborn. So I'm like, no, I'm going to try. But you know, the boat was sinking. It was flawed. The whole thing was flawed, because when the leadership at the top is flawed, or when that is broken, there's nothing that you can then do anymore. You can try, but you have to know when it's the limit. And one day I'm just crying, not in front of my team, but outside in Emar Square. And I remember crying because I was just so broken. I couldn't take it anymore. I was so unhappy. I was so depressed. And I just remember looking up to the sky and just remembering, what did my mom and grandma always said to me? I gotta look for what makes me happy. And guess what? I don't know what's on the other side, but what's on this side right now, I cannot stay. So whatever it is on that other side is going to be so much better than the misery that I am in. And this is something that I just always want you guys to remember, that if you are in a miserable situation, if you are in an unhappy situation, you have got to get out of that fast. Nothing will justify you staying in a miserable situation for the sake of the end goal. That strategy is broken. You don't stick something out and stick with being miserable for hopefully the end goal is going to be okay. Your process is what you need to fall in love with. So I quit my job. I didn't have much money saved, which is terrible. So please save. And I started being a consultant. And I never thought I would have my own business, because having your own business was something that I thought was only for the rich and the wealthy, especially in Dubai. But I knew what my business was because I had the concept all in my head. And guess what? In my first 2 months, I was making even more money than I was making in my previous job. And I had a very good salary. So I remembered walking home and just calling my mom up and saying, hold up a second. If it's been 2 months and I am making even more money of what my salary is, people clearly are still trusting me, then I can build my own business. I can do this. And that began the journey of House of Social. And thankfully, it's going to be 5 years this October. It has been a consistent, profitable business. I am 100% self-funded, what we call bootstrapping. So I do not have angel investors. I don't have investors. I don't have loans. I don't have a credit line. Everything that I have made, I have just been constantly putting back in the business. And it's 100% self-funded. And I believed that I could, and I just wanted to try. And sometimes that's all that you need to start. You don't need huge, big things to start. It doesn't have to be this huge, humongous thing. It's all about building blocks, step by step, but never stop believing in yourself and never stop believing in the goal that you really want. Nobody is going to give you the goal for you. Nobody's going to build a dream for you unless you do it and you try. And it is so worth the ride. So whatever you decide to do with your life, with your career, to wrap up, I will say, don't feel pressure that you have to have it all figured out. You have to experiment as many things as possible so that you see what you enjoy. Lean into the things that you see yourself doing as a hobby. Sometimes my clients and my students ask me, what should be my thing? And I'm like, just pay attention. Where are you spending your time? Are you obsessive about growing plants and gardening and flower arrangements? Maybe that's your thing. So pay attention to what you are leaning into naturally. And lastly, you have to be fearless, because without being fearless, without rebelling, without really being gritty and being afraid to get dirty, you're not going to get close to whatever that dream is. So you got to be ready to go over that edge a little bit. So that's my story. And I am excited that I am seeing here some comments. So let me read some comments and answer some questions. So Maha, what if you get bullied out of pursuing your dream? Really good question. Parents might bully you out from pursuing your dream. And we have to understand that sometimes it's coming because different cultures, different generation, actually, I didn't want to say different cultures, different generations. Sometimes in certain cultures, the generation gap is extreme, that it's hard for them to understand that you want to go and pursue a different career or even be an entrepreneur. You have to respect and have the empathy and compassion to understand that maybe your parents or whoever that is just has this generation gap and doesn't understand. But you can never let somebody bully you into not doing. That's when you have to rebel. And that's when you have to say, I respect your point of view. I will continue to love you, especially if it's mom and dad, but I have to do this for me. The last thing you ever want to do in your life is live with the regret that you didn't do something because of mom and dad, because the poison that's going to create in the relationship, it's going to break the relationship. The resentment you're going to feel is going to creep in and it's going to break that relationship. So don't allow anybody to bully you, and start finding ways to do it. Moving out of the house, getting a job so you have your own money, making your own choices, and communicating. Communicate. If it's mom and dad, communicate and say, I love you and I understand that maybe this is hard for you to get it. I want you to know that I still love you, but I have to do this for myself. It's your own story. You have to write it, right? So that was Maha. That was really good. Like, if people make fun of something you want to do, how do you manage that and convince yourself it's worth it? Let me tell you this, Maha. If somebody is making fun of what you want to do, those are not people that you want to hang around with. The company you keep will have some of the biggest impact on you. So look at the company you keep. If those friends laugh at you when you want to say you want to go to the moon, they are not the friends you want to hang around with. You need to go and make new friends. You want to use that time that you are trying to convince your friends to maybe be reading, maybe taking an online course, maybe finding other peers. Never spend any time convincing people about your dreams. That is the most ROI negative time. Why do I need to spend my time convincing my friends of what I want to do? You want to do it, you do it. You don't owe anybody nothing, especially friends that laugh at you. So you need to get new friends. They're not your friends. You got to ditch these friends and you got to go and get new friends. Friends that will actually also have ambitions, that also want to do interesting stuff, that you can learn from, that you can challenge each other from. So that was amazing, Maha. That was really, really good. How do you manage that and convince yourself it's worth it? Convincing yourself it's worth it. You should not have to convince yourself it's worth it. If you want to do it, you want to do it. If you need to convince yourself, then you're just flirting with it and you're not really in love with it. Sometimes in life, there's things we flirt with, and that's okay, because we need to see if it sticks. So flirt with something. Maybe you want to do, like planting, and you're going to flirt with planting. Oh, okay. But I kind of like it, but I don't really like it. Okay, that's the learning. That's the key takeaway. You move on to the next thing, So Maha, let me know if this made sense. Do you have advice for someone whose parents want them to do one thing and then they don't want to study? So I just covered that. Boom. So Maha, if you want to talk more about it privately, please DM me on my Instagram. My Instagram is, I'm going to leave my stuff here. This is my Instagram. And you can, Alex, House of Social, you can DM me there and we can keep talking privately about this. I would love to continue that conversation with you. Curtin, University Dubai says, admitting you have a chip on your shoulder about the education bit, opening up about the bullying experience is great to hear someone. So I said, oh, thank you. Yes, my school time was bad. I wrote about this on my social media a few days ago. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see it. I wrote about it. I would keep sandwiches in my blazer pockets so that at lunchtime I would go sit in the toilets and eat inside the toilet because I was so ashamed of sitting alone. It was tough. Kids can be tough, but you know, I wouldn't take anything back. You take tough situations and you decide, do you become a warrior, or are you going to feel sorry for yourself? I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I certainly don't want people to feel sorry for myself. So you fight. You have to always fight back. And also, whatever stuff that's happened to you when you were in school, you can always unlearn. Those things don't define who you are. So that's important to know. Let me see here. Adam Can, thank you so much for your message. Aska, as someone who enjoys analyzing English literature and writing essays, I can't find many opportunities. Do you have any advice? So as someone who enjoys analyzing English literature and writing essays, I can't find many. Well, tell me more. What opportunities are you looking for? Because it is filled with opportunities out there. Also, by the way, we don't find opportunities, we create opportunities. We have to create the opportunity. They don't come to us, you know? So if you, I don't know, Aska, if you are still here, but if you want to type up a little bit more context for me, if I have more context, I'll be able to help you out. But if you love analyzing English literature and writing essays, you could help out other students. So you could, I mean, and I'm just now talking out of my head because I actually don't know the details of what you're going to tell me, but you could even teach younger students that are in younger grades with their essays, right? So you could even hustle on the side and give extra classes for free or get paid. So you could help younger kids understand these English essays and these English literature that sometimes can be really hard. So that's one thing that you could do. So you could help out younger students in this. You could actually write about it. If you enjoy it, you could use your Instagram page, or you could vlog, or, you know, you could write about it. You could take excerpts from English literature and you could explain it in a more modern way. Again, it very much depends. And this is always the key question I ask people. What do you want to happen? What do you want? And then you work backwards from there. So yeah, thank you so much for such good comments here. And let me see, I have one new message. Aska, that helped a lot. Thank you. Awesome. I don't know if there's any more questions. So I'm just going to open it back to you guys. If there's anything that you want to share.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great. I think that's it for the questions from the attendees at the moment. I personally have one. If you would answer.
I would love to, yes.
So what's your advice to like some people that can't pursue their dreams due to personal responsibilities or certain restrictions, or, you know, like some people have dependents, so they don't have the luxury of, say, you know, quitting their job to go after what they actually want. And I mean, that's something that you see a lot over here. So what would you say to that?
I say that first, I relate to that in two ways. My mom and my family, they were from Angola, Angola was a country that was a Portuguese colony. And then when the independence happened, war happened, and they became refugees and lost everything. And my mom never got to be a lawyer and go to study law. And I can relate to the aspect of life happens sometimes and you just can't do that thing that you really wanted to do. Or there's other serious things that kind of hold you down. Well, my thoughts on this is, one, we can always have the power to reinvent ourselves. So when I look at my mom, I see how much she reinvented herself. Maybe she couldn't get to go to study law and be a lawyer, but she certainly achieved so many other amazing things professionally. So I think the power of being able to reinvent ourselves and to find other things, maybe if not, they even become better things than that thing we really wanted to do, is something that we have in us. And I think it's a muscle that we need to train, that if I just can't do something now the way that I want to do it, how I want to do it, how can I reinvent myself to possibly look at other things? Or the reinvention of, if I can't fully do it how I want to do it, if I was to break it down in a much smaller way, how could I then do it? I think sometimes we get very fixated on the ideal of how we want to do it. Like I always thought that I needed to have millions to have my, it's really true. Like I had this idea of like, oh, having your own business, that's like for rich people. I'm never going to be rich and I'm not rich now. And it's fascinating how when we start small and you just have the patience and you work hard, it starts to happen. So I would also say that maybe try to look at it from a different perspective. Maybe come out of that perspective that you might just be looking at so much and try to see it from another angle, that maybe you could do it in a different way. Maybe you could do it after hours. Maybe it can be on the weekend. Maybe it can be a side thing. So I think this would be my advice. And then to really ask yourself the question, am I not doing it because it's just the pressure of the family? And do I want to live with that resentment and what that might do? And I'm just scared to take the step, but I have to. Or is it really serious stuff? And then another thing is your age. I don't know what the age is, but sometimes when I get a lot of students or clients or my community talk to me about these topics, is also the age. If you're in your 20s, you still have, like, even in your 30s, like, you still have so much of life, you know, like there's still so much. Like I'm 38 and I feel like I'm just getting started and I feel like I'm a cat. Like I've lived like all these other lives and I can't, like, I cannot wait. Like I'll secretly tell you, between you and I'll secretly tell you, I cannot wait to get lost again. Like, let me hit a point where I actually don't know anything anymore and I have to figure it all out. Let me go and spend, I don't know, a month in Thailand or Bali and like rediscovering myself back again. Like there's also this thing of age, like there's time, like we have so much time. Like it's really funny. Like I'll talk to like 20-year-olds and they'll be like, oh my God. And they're talking to me like they're in their 40s. And then I'll go, what's your age? And they're like, I'm 24. And I just like, I mean, I'm like, come on, like you're going to have 20 more lives. You're going to have like 25 different more careers if you want. You want to be a ice skater, now go. In 10 years time, you want to become a lawyer, you can. Like there is still a huge amount of time. And that's something I think a lot of younger people seem to forget, is that you got time. So sometimes that can be something like, if it's a situation that you have to hold down for a while, just know that when that ends, if it's something quite like critical and you have to like, you know, that's holding you down, just know that you got time. Like my mom now, it's fascinating to see, like my grandma, she passed away a year ago in January and she was really ill. And my mom had to really kind of like forsake her career and a lot of her life to really just take care of my mom. So my grandma, so she kind of put on hold a lot of her life. And now that Nana passed away, it's almost like she's now having to like reinvent. No, I don't want to say reinvent, but like picking back where she kind of paused. And my mom is like in her late 60s. And it's like, it is never, ever, ever too late to reinvent, to restart. So yeah, that's what I would have to say to that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was so great. And honestly, just listening to you was like so entertaining and so interesting.
I'm so glad. I hope it brought everybody value. I do want to tell everybody I have an academy. If you guys want to join, please join. It's free, 100% free lifetime. I've got 14 courses on there on social media and digital marketing. I hold regular free Zoom group mentorship sessions where we talk about stuff like this. So definitely sign up. It's free. There's nothing. It's 100% free. There's no catch. There's no like, oh, you pay after the 3 months. No, it's all free. We got 2,500 students already signed up. So come and hang out with us there. It's really, really fun. And we can talk more on this. And if you want to talk more, DM me and I'll happily like continue the conversation. And I've loved being here today with you guys.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we loved having you.
Awesome.
Again, thank you to you, and thank you for all of our attendees as well. And yeah, let's wrap up this session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you on the other side.
Bye-bye.
Bye.